Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Purposeful Productivity Show with Florence Donald. Tonight, we're talking about something that all of us deal with, regardless of where we come from, what our current state is, and that is meetings. I'm going to talk about the art and really the value of well structured meetings where we'll just dig into what we can, secrets of getting to boosting our efficiency, getting better at collaboration, and driving to results, because that's what we want to achieve. We're going to talk about the types of meetings there are and what their purpose is, and the impact of when you have a well structured meeting, and really the factors and the elements that go into structuring a meeting well. So that is the show tonight. Glad to have you here. My name is Florence. As I said, I'm your host, and I coach professionals, entrepreneurs, faith based leaders on streamlining your productivity system so that you accomplish your goals, your purpose without as much friction as you are currently experiencing. You see, we all experience friction in our productivity system. So it's a constant rework and update. So I'm going to say hello to those of you who are here with us in the live stream. Glad to have you here. And I'm going to see who's out there because I want to just get to it pretty quick tonight. Let's see. Good evening, Frank. Glad to have you here. You're always out serving, one of my closest friends, as well as one of our moderators and our community manager. Glad to have you with us. And then we have with us another moderator and designer, public relations extraordinaire, Joshua Uell. Also has another name on there, but he's not using that tonight. So glad to have you with us. And as others join in, we'll just greet them and continue on. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight are, because all meetings are not the same. There are many different types of meetings. So understanding the type of meeting that you're going into is important so that it is relevant and you're getting out of it what you want to get out, and you're putting in what needs to be put in. Ultimately, so that the meeting is efficient, it's effective, and it's productive, meaning the outcomes that are supposed to come out of it are achieved. There are different size meetings, small meetings with just a handful of people, medium sized meetings, large meetings, mass meetings, meetings of all types. So let's dig into a few of the common ones that you may be experiencing or may have experience, and you may be facilitating some of these or participating in them. One is team meetings. That is just a regular gathering where a regular team that works together to discuss ongoing activities and projects and share updates with each other and collaborate on tasks. That's one that we're pretty familiar with, whether we're doing volunteer work or it's in business or it's in a job, or it doesn't matter. We're pretty familiar with those. Another type is board meetings. These are usually held by organizations that have a governing body, and they focus on governance and strategic planning and policy. That's another type of meeting, and it requires something different. Another type of project kickoff meeting. I really love this type because I use these all the time when you're getting ready to start a project with a client, whether it's internal or external, volunteer or not. That is a type of meeting where it marks the start of the new project. It's the opportunity to set goals and roles and set expectations. So that's a kickoff meeting. Status update meetings. Typically, we pair these with projects for the most part, but just as used to report progress on tasks and projects and what we've got going on current things. Sales meetings. This is huge. If you're in business or you're in a role that requires sales meetings are typically, they're about performance, setting targets, discussing sales strategies, but they also could be with you meeting with a potential client or a client about a new opportunity with them. Then this one, training and development meetings. We go to training all the time, but do we think of them as meetings? They are. And they are there to help us develop skills and sharpen skills and to educate us. Annual general meetings is a big one in companies, as well as, for example, some of the organizations that regularly have these are companies with their stakeholders. Homeowners associations of all stripes and sizes have them, but annual general meetings, they discuss the finances, the current state of the organization, how it's performed, future plans. Town halls, larger gatherings typically to just have open dialogue with the stakeholders who are coming, covering updates, a little bit different than a status meeting because you get a lot of questions. It's a big Q&A session oftentimes. Interviews. Interviews are another type of meeting. You may be interviewing a candidate for a role, whether it's volunteer or not. You may be being interviewed as a candidate for a role. Again, it can be volunteer. It don't have to be volunteer. It can be large. It can be small. But interviews are another type. Strategic planning meetings, department meetings, to me, they go along a little bit. Department meetings go along a little bit with team meetings, but departments is usually more specific to a business area, and they're talking about objectives and where they are and how far they are away from or how close they are to the objectives of the department. There are many, many other types of meetings. I want to touch on just two more. One are social or team building meetings. We sometimes think of these as get together and maybe you're going to have dinner or you're going to go do some kind of activity to build team cohesion and improve team morale, but it's a meeting nonetheless. And the last one I want to talk about is client or customer feedback meetings. These are specifically set up to get feedback from your client and insight from your client or your customer to improve your product or your services. That is a plethora, and it's not all of them, but types of meetings that you could be engaged with, whether you are planning it, running it, facilitating it, organizing it, or simply attending and participating. I want to encourage you as I go through this material this evening, if you have a question, please go ahead and put a Q colon in front of it and ask your question, because I want to make sure that for this topic, we get questions out and I can answer them and respond to them. So if you have a question, yes, go ahead and put it in chat this evening. So let's move on to, now that we know what kinds of questions, what kinds of meetings we can experience and we do experience, let's talk about the impact of having well-structured meetings. And in some cases, it's the impact of not having well-structured meetings. They're both. There's a positive and there's sometimes a challenging. So one is, if the meeting is well-structured, it's efficient. It allows the participants to accomplish the meeting's objectives with minimal time and resources. You're not spending as much energy, and you know exactly what you need to accomplish the goals because you know what the goals are. So it takes away some of the distractions and reduces delays. You're not showing up and then somebody doesn't have something that they need. The other positive benefit or impact is it's effective because you achieve the goals and you get to the outcomes. You ensure that the meeting has a purpose and you meet that purpose. You achieve the purpose. So efficiency, you work with less distractions, fewer resources, more efficient use of your time. Effectiveness, you really accomplish the purpose and the outcomes of that meeting. Again, there are a lot of different types. So they have different purposes, different objectives that they're put together for. Nonetheless, it's a type of meeting. Let me say this. If you think of a meeting as an event, because they all are, I've found personally that it helps me. Every meeting is an event, none less than a dinner event that I go to, or a photo shoot that you may go to, or even like tonight, live streaming. It's an event. So a meeting is a type of event. But then there's some things that aren't always so positive that can be an impact if your meeting is not well structured. You lose time and resources. You're waiting. You didn't plan enough time to set up and get going if you're in person or even if you're virtual. You don't have material that you need, a document that you need, or something else, pen, paper. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't have some resource, from some physical resource that's needed to effectively run the meeting, and you're looking around, and you cause delays. You also affect the morale of the participants' morale, because I don't know about you, but if this is you, you've ever said this to yourself or said it out loud, put yes in the chat. This is a waste of my time. I don't even know why I'm here. This meeting is a waste of my time. That is part of that participant morale decrease, because the people who are there don't know why they're there. They're frustrated. They don't want to be there, and they're really not participating. And it's because many times the meetings are not structured well. They don't have a clear objective, a clear outcome, a decision to be made, or and the purpose is not clear. You also miss opportunities, because when a meeting is not structured well, you can miss opportunities in solving a problem, making a decision, coming up with new innovations, being creative. That just doesn't happen because it's not planned well, it's not structured well, it's not clear. Those are things that are impacts to well structured and meetings that are not well structured. Impacts are both sides. It can move you forward, it can also hold you back. So those are things to think about when you say, well, why is this a big deal about these structured meetings? Those are the reasons. So let's say, what are the parts? This is number 3. What are the parts to a well-structured meeting? If they're important and they can make you efficient and can be effective, what are the parts? First part, everyone knows this, but how many have you seen that have been poorly done? An agenda. An agenda that is well defined with clear topics, clear objectives, clearly assigned roles and responsibilities. Who's going to take charge of what portion of the agenda? The agenda sets the tone. I remember in my professional life being told as a leader, if you get called into a meeting and there's no agenda, don't show up. Just don't show up, because it's going to be a waste of your time. But how many, if you have attended a meeting and there was no agenda, just put yes in the chat. Or if you're in the comment because you're listening to the replay, put yes in the comment and give me some feedback if that has been something you've experienced. Then clear objectives. What is it that the meeting is supposed to achieve? What are the objectives? What are you supposed to come out with? That way, everyone can stay on track and stay focused. Having very clear objectives laid out. And I submit the objective should be in the agenda. What is the objective, or what are the objectives if there is more than one? The third is the roles of the participants. Let me just say, I really learned this really well being a Toastmaster, because every regular club meeting, there are specific roles that must be filled. And as those roles are filled, each person has instructions on what to do just for that role. And while they're attending the meeting, we also understand as Toastmasters what our purpose is if we are the grammarian, or if we're the R counter, or whatever, the timer. What our goal and what our objective is in the role that we're filling. But how many meetings have you attended where the roles are not clearly defined? The two that I always put in meetings in business is who's going to be the note taker or the scribe. I don't like it being me, because then I lose focus on leading if I'm leading the meeting. But the second one is, if I'm not leading the meeting, who is leading the meeting? The note taker and the meeting leader or meeting facilitator are two roles that I insist on always including, because otherwise it's a free for all and people are wondering what the heck is going on. So if you don't fill those roles, another one could be a timekeeper. If you're not really good at watching the clock and paying attention to how long a topic has been going, get someone to pay attention to the time so that the meeting starts on time and ends on time and you cover everything that needs to be covered. So the going back, those are the core elements. The agenda, which sets the roadmap for the meeting. It gets everybody in alignment. The objectives, make sure everybody stays focused and on topic in the meeting to achieve the purpose. And the other thing is, when you have that down, you don't just slap an agenda together and send it out. I will admit I have on occasion done that. But to be effective and efficient, you distribute it ahead of time. Good rule of thumb, at a minimum, 24 hours prior to the meeting. Preferably further out, but a good rule of thumb, one that works, is at least 24 hours so that the participants are ready when they show up. I have a habit of, especially in business, when I'm planning a meeting, I will often meet with the people who have a role, or at a minimum, send them separate instructions on how to fulfill that role, not assuming that they know exactly what the expectations are for the role. So those are things that you can do. That's the art part, right? You're working with people, you're collaborating, setting people up to succeed and setting your meeting up to be a success. That is the art part. And when your meeting is structured with a clear agenda, that's a good roadmap and roles identified, and everyone knows what their roles are and how to fulfill the roles, you walk into the meeting, or you dial into the meeting if it's virtual, ready to go, and you're not wasting time trying to figure out the roadmap, who's doing what, and you reduce, I won't say you don't have it, but you really, really reduce the times when someone says, I don't even know why I'm here. What is the purpose? What is the purpose of this meeting? I don't know why I'm here. So, just real quick, we had a bunch of different types of meetings. We talked about the elements and why it's important to have a well-structured meeting. And a well-structured meeting is just that, a really tight agenda and the things that we talked about. So what do you do with this now that you've done that? I love giving you homework. So here's what I encourage you to do. If you are a participant, write down a list of the meetings that you regularly attend and think about what are the things that don't happen today that you would like to see happen. Maybe you don't get the agenda ahead of time. Maybe the agenda is not clear. Maybe the roles are not identified. Maybe the objective in the agenda, the objective of the meeting is not clear in the agenda. Whatever it is, write it down so that you see it. Just grab a notepad or Apple Notes on your phone, or test Google Doc, it doesn't matter. Just make a list of those meetings and then look over it and think about your role. And if you're the facilitator or organizer or participant, do it anyway. Then think about and write down what value, when you're going to go into each and every meeting, what value do you bring to that meeting? Or are you just waiting for someone else to make it valuable for you? If you're waiting for someone else to make it valuable for you, I encourage you to decide, what value am I going to bring, and write it down. And then write down a list of improvements, big or small, that you want to employ when you show up in whatever type of meeting it is. Last step, schedule 5 to 10 minutes for each meeting to prepare. Get your documents together, put them in a Evernote file together, whatever you use. If you need 5 minutes, if you need an hour, the hour can be broken up a little bit over several days. But set aside the time in your calendar. Actually schedule an appointment on your calendar to prepare for every meeting so that you show up prepared and it is in order, and you can work with the facilitator, if you're not the facilitator, to achieve the objectives of that meeting, whatever type it may be. That's it for tonight. I have gone through the material. This is a new month, new kickoff, and we're going to be talking about meetings through the month of November because it is such a part of our everyday lives. We all participate in them. If you have questions or you want to just talk about how I can help you or what struggles you're having, reach out to me. Go to florencedonald.live, schedule 15 minutes on the calendar. And we're still working on growing this channel, so subscribe to the channel if you have not already subscribed. And if you have meeting questions, leave them in the comments. I will be glad to get answers out to you. Well, that is it this evening, everybody. We have covered the material. Love this topic because we all struggle with bad meetings. Have a great evening, everybody.